Today we're going to look at a homemade grow light. Draws 53 watts, give or take, 6 feet long, and I want to say it cost me about $50 to make. So we're going to walk you through how we did that. Real quick overview. We have a regulator at the end, keeps it at 12 volts for us. The camera can pick it up. I have the regular grow light strips on the outside here, and in the middle is a green. That seems to work pretty good for growing plants. We're going to build another one. So let's see what it takes to build one of these. I have all the parts laid out that I'm going to need to do this build. Our backbone is 1.5 inches by 6 foot in this case, hunk of aluminum. Not sure the thickness, but something that seems like it has some strength to it, should be fine. We have, of course, our grow lights. I'm using green for my middle strip, and I'm using the red and blue grow lights for the outside strip. You can pick whatever colors you like, of course. These are 12 volt. One little tip, when you get these, they tend not to label what they are, minus some part number you won't recognize, and I certainly don't. So I label mine. I put it on the bag. On the outside, this just says grow 12 volts. The voltage is important to know. And then right on the plastic itself, because sometimes I forget to put them back in the bag. So it's kind of scribbled on there, 12 volts and grow. So the first step, well, let's not go into the steps yet. Thank you for helping. The regulator. So you need these when you're operating off a battery, because what will happen is the battery tends to sit a little higher than 12 volts, and these actually cook pretty easily when you do that. They'll last a couple minutes and you'll have a beautiful light until it's gone. This one's a 72 watt version. We'll put the link in the description for it. I wouldn't go any less than a 6 amp rating. So this puts out 12 volts at 6 amps. The input is wide, 8 to 40 volts, so that's good up to a 24 volt system. It'll get a little bit warmer on a 24 volt system, but not really a big deal. So that's that. I like the case it comes into. I've tried a bunch of these, and these are the only ones that seem to last. So do not buy the cheaper ones. More expensive, yes. So first step we're going to do to actually get into the work, we're going to clean this off. I got some grime on here. There's usually some oil from the factory. So you don't want any of that, because this has a sticky back and it will not stick to grime and oil very well. So I just take a paper towel, take some rubbing alcohol, squirt it on, and start rubbing it down. Right, so we scrubbed that down, gave it a little bit of time to dry. Now we're going to start placing out our parts and seeing how it looks. Put this at the end. We have a little bit of room to put a hole for mounting. That should be plenty. Probably goes without saying, if you want a shorter light than this, you don't need to use a 6 foot length. And if you use a shorter length, you can get away with probably a smaller one of these, but they're all pretty inexpensive. I'm going to mark the hole pattern for that. So later on when I drill it, we'll be okay. And I'll just put a hole at the end here. We'll have no lights at the end there. Now this draws about 52 watts when it's done. Somewhere in that range. This again is just for off-grid battery type use. If you're going to run these off a power supply, which I'll go pick one out for that, this would just be removed and you tie your wires together in the one power supply and you're done. But I want to have this for our greenhouse, which is off-grid. Okay, so now at the very edge, this one is the grow light. So I'm going to do grow light, green light, grow light. Just kind of measure this out. A little bit of slack Not quite up to the regulator, but close. I'll measure this out to the end. And while I'm here, I'll mark my other hole. Now if you zoom in on this, see these little gold sections here. That's where you're allowed to snip. So I'm going to just take some scissors and cut that where I want it. So that's about where it measured to, and we'll just cut right down the middle there. And there we have it. Now we'll stick this down. This has a little sticky back. Just kind of peel that back. Sometimes the sticky, like they happened this time, the sticky will start coming up with it. So I gotta kind of work at that and get the backing off. Okay, so I got the sticky part off. Well, the backing off anyway. And go right up to the edge of our aluminum. And just walk it back. So I kind of just guide it with my fingers while I'm pulling back this thing. The backing on it. And I'll lay the rest of that out. So now we have the strip on. Covers most of the length of the aluminum. And I'm going to pick a hole somewhere in the middle of the mark. It's going to be precise, I just don't want to have this flex because this is kind of a flexible piece that we have. So right around here, I'll put it near this one of these unions because I don't care if the screw bites that a little bit. It won't hurt anything. That's about halfway, I would say. Got one more over perhaps. So I'll put a hole there. And the next strip, we're going to come down straight up the middle and try to avoid that hole. And that will be a green strip. Label green. Now this one I've used before, which brings up a really good point. These can be soldered again. In fact, I should do another one so you can see me pull the end off of that. They only come with wires at the ends. So I got them on the inside here. I've already used this one before. So I have two choices. I can either solder wires onto the end, or I can unravel it and just use the other side and throw out the middle. Or better yet, mail it to me. So what I think I'll do, let's see, what would be easiest to show? Okay, I'm going to do it both ways. So let me get another one. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the cut end, and it has this waterproofing on it, which is pretty helpful for a grow light. But you can't get to your contacts. That's those little gold things right there. So what I do is I take this little Swiss Army knife scissors. You can use an X-Acto knife or whatever you like. But I kind of jam it underneath the insulation and just kind of pop it over. Once you're in there, kind of pry it off. So that flap kind of formed. So that's the waterproofing, and that's the actual PCB printed circuit board. So I just take my scissors and snip it off. And then you're left with these two little contacts here. Now, I think I cut off my polarity But if I go further down, it says the positive is on that side. So we'll have to trust him on that. We could ring it out, I suppose. In fact, I'll do that real quick just to show how to do that. So just to double check, we'll take the end that's not cut yet. We'll go ahead and we'll put our probe on there. I set this to the beep, the cheap little meter from the auto parts store. But that's a little beep setting. So when you touch them, they'll beep. It's hard to hear, but it did beep. Okay, so red would be positive. And we're going to just touch. Oops, I'm off the wire. There it goes. So they have it labeled right. I've had these in the past, they were labeled backwards. So it always pays to check. Okay, so now we've cut a length of wire to put on here. This I think is 16 gauge. Probably overkill. It is overkill. But I have it. So we'll cut the ends and strip them. Left my good strippers in the farm, but these will work. So now we have some bare ends. In fact, one I'll make a bit longer because I'll be tying it to the other wire. Good. Alright, so now I got the iron set to 375, that's in Celsius. I'm going to put some little blobs of solder on these contacts. A little more on that side. Got a big wire. It's going to soak up the solder. And then I'll tin the outside of these wires. Sight that's going on there. So there you just heat up your wire and let the solder melt into it. There's one. And that's tinned. Okay, check my polarity again. Positives toward me. We gotta press that down. Let it heat up for a minute. I think that's good. Yep, that's on there. Measure twice. And again, this is just if you want to do the soldering and save a little bit of money for yourself. Very good. Actually, I want to do that one yet. So there's residual left over. We got a light on both sides. Those are both grow lights. And you wind up with about 5.5 feet of leftover. So not too bad. Now in my case, I'm going to save it again and put it back on the spool. But you of course don't have to. Okay, now we'll add the green one down the middle. That's one we just soldered. I think I'll line it up with the other lights so that cut piece in the middle lines up all the way around. And that'll be important when we put the screws in. I like getting the other one on first because I put my finger and thumb to kind of line them up as I go along. Okay, so now we're coming up on where our screw hole is going to go. So I'm going to kind of start walking this toward the other strap. Just so I know when I put that screw in, it doesn't break anything on me. So there's where it's going to meet, and I'll start walking it back to the middle now. Now we have the 3 strips on. Grow, green, grow. Be a good slogan. And these, of course, I have nicely stripped back because I knew what I was going to get into. These, at the factory, of course, I didn't know what I had planned. So I'm going to strip these back a little bit. You'll notice I have way thicker wire. So these are going to draw about 1 amp each. So it's not a lot of current to put through those. And I should have brought my better strippers, but that's okay. Very thin wire they give you. So I'm going to strip these back. What's that, about 1/2 inch? 12.5 millimeters for our rest of the world friends. There's 2. And we'll get the other 2. My cat is very interested when these fly off. Discovered a new fun toy. And of course, it's very good to have a helper when you do this, to collect all your insulation pieces that fly off to make nice toys. Very thin wire they give you, but that's okay. So now we have some options. If you've avoided soldering thus far, you can still avoid soldering. They sell these little things, these little they're terminals, for what they're called, but I can always look them up. I'll put a link in the description. But all you would do is take all the reds. No, not now. We'll play later. So all the reds together. And I'm going to twist them so they stay together. Sort of. I may not want to join the different size wires, but we'll see. And what you can do, I should probably show this first. So this has input and output. So we're going to hook to the output. So the yellow is the positive, the black is the negative. And it's even labeled for you. So bring the yellow, which is again the output, for positive. Put it next to those. And we'll just slide that in. And I'm going to see if I can twist that. If it'll let me. Yeah, probably if I had pliers it would. Anyway, we'll just kind of slide that all together. It doesn't fit in that side, so we'll put it in the other side. These have little screws, and you can just kind of screw them down. Hopefully that wire didn't pop out. It's in there like that. And I'll take the yellow on the other side. That screw is down. So we have to open it first. and screw that down, and then that's connected. You can do the same thing with the other side for the blacks, but I'm not going to because I'm going to solder them together. It's a little better connection. But you don't actually have to solder during this job at all. Okay, so I twisted all the positives together. Just going to heat them up a little bit. As you get some solder in your iron, you can transfer your heat better. And keep your solder away from your cat. There's that. Okay, so I got the positive and the negative soldered up. Now we'll throw some electrical tape on it. And just kind of wrap that around. I'm going to choke up and get the strain off the wire before I actually cover the parts I want to cover. It's up and safe. Now ordinarily you'd want to put these holes in ahead of time, but because I forgot my drill, I have to drill these later, and just be careful when I drill them. I wanted to say, if you wanted to run this off the grid, these come with these lights oftentimes. If not, you could buy them. And what you would do, how we had all those wires coming into one spot before, you would take one wire coming out of each side, so positive and negative, and plug it into that. That then plugs into a power supply, which I'll find and put a link in the description for. So you can run this off the grid, run it off the grid. All depends how you put it together. This is the off-grid configuration we're doing today. Okay, time to put some holes in. I guess one last step before I drill the holes is I use this welder glue to just kind of glue it to the metal. I've noticed the adhesive tends to fail on the backs of these over time, so I just kind of bridge it where the copper is. Just go right down the length and just kind of do that. The reason why I do it where the copper is, because this is going to block the heat flow away from the light, and there's no heat generated where that copper is, because there's no LED there. Okay, I'll just go ahead and finish the rest of this down, and next step we'll drill some holes. Okay, now our glue has dried. Now we'll start drilling our holes for our screw mounting. Okay, our holes are drilled. Let's make sure that lines up. And decent enough anyway. This is a pretty tight hole that I drilled. Probably thread that right in. Yeah, there we go. It's in far enough. Now we'll throw the nuts on, the washers. I don't remember what size these are, but I think we'll see they're number 6. Could be a metric. I'll measure it when I get home. And put links in the description for it. Ready? Okay, I'll just sink a screw in the center of this. Not all the way, and I want to crush the LEDs. A slight design change. I forgot how I built the greenhouse. So now at the end, made the hole a bit bigger and threw some 550 cord through it. So we'll kind of hang it from the 2x6 here, or 2x8, whatever that was. More or less level. And just tie it off. And it's banked a little bit. Okay, now it's hung. Cord at both ends. And I clear it, which I was worried about. So now we're going to put some connectors on real quick. So these are our ends from before. The red and the black. The red is going to get the male connector. The male has that little blade on the inside. These are the blues, of course. Give it a good squeeze. And always tug on it, make sure it doesn't come off. That's on. Here's a female. And we'll crimp that one down. And that's on there too. That's going to run a wire from a switch. And we'll be in business. I think in the future I'm going to do this automated. So I have this turn on at the last 2 hours after sundown. Get a little bit of supplemental light for our plants in here. But that's another video. For now, we just wired on a switch. I think most of you know how to do this, but just in case. This is the positive wire in the back coming out from my battery bank. And this switch is the one that was lit up initially. And this one's going to control the new one. Just got to cinch that down, put it back in, and we'll run our ground and we should be good. Okay, so I ran the lines. I'm using 16-2 lamp wire, by the way. And the smooth I use as a positive, and the striped, or rigid, whatever you want to call it, ribbed, I use that as the negative. So here's the positive coming in. Put a female connector on that to mate up with the male on the other side. There's that one. And the negative is hanging somewhere. Here it is. That's on there too. So negative, bring into here. And positive. So I gotta bend that tab up. Sometimes those get pushed in at the factory. I just kind of wedge something underneath it. My pen's gonna work this time. Kind of bring it back in the center. A little bit gap underneath. Let's see if I did it enough or not. Yep. Okay. And we'll check it. It looks like we have power. Now they're both on. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you found it helpful and brought value to your life.